Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Verse 14. Yavanna jayet paravaresmin
यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन्
Vishveshware drashtari bhakti yoga
विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगा
tavat stavya purushasya rupam
तावत्स्थैव पुरुषस्य रूपम्
kriyavasane prayatasmaretha
क्रियावसाने प्रयत स्मरेत
yavanna jayet paravaresmin
यावन्न जायेत परावस्मिन्
विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्ति योगा
विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगा
तावत्स्तवीय पुरुषस्य रूपम्
तावत्स्थैव पुरुषस्य रूपम्
क्रियावशाने प्रयतस्मरेथ
क्रियावसाने प्रयत स्मरेत
यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन्
यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन्
विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्ति योगा
विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगा
तावत्स्तवीय पुरुषस्य रूपम्
तावत्स्थैव पुरुषस्य रूपम्
क्रियावसाने प्रयतस्मरेत
क्रियावसाने प्रयत स्मरेत यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन्
यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन्
विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगा
विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगा
तावत्स्थैव पुरुषस्य रूपम्
तावस्तवनीय पुरुषस्य रूपम्
क्रियावसाने प्रयत स्मरेत
क्रियावसाने
प्रयत
प्रयतस्मरेत
स्मरेत यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन् यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन् विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टारि भक्तियोगा विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगा तावत्स्थवीय पुरुषस्य रूपम् तावत्स्थैव पुरुषस्य रूपम् क्रियावसाने प्रयत स्मरेत क्रियावसाने प्रयत स्मरेत
Translation and purport by Steven Grace Have Charna Arvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Synonyms. Yavat, as long as.
Yavat, as long as.
Na, does not.
Na, does not.
Jayetha, develop.
Jayeta, develop.
Para, transcendental.
Para, transcendental.
Avare, mundane.
Avare, mundane.
Asmin, in this form of.
Asmin, in this form of.
Vishwa Ishware, the Lord of all worlds.
Vishwa Ishware, the Lord of all worlds.
Oh. Drashtari, unto the seer.
Drashtari, unto the seer.
Bhakti Yoga, devotional service.
Bhakti Yoga, devotional service.
Tavat, so long.
Tavat, so long.
Staviya, the gross materialist.
Staviya, the gross materialist.
Purushasya, of the Virat Purusha.
Purushasya, of the Virat Rupa, Purusha.
Rupam, universal form.
Rupam, universal form.
Kriya avasane, at the end of one's prescribed duties.
Kriya Avasane, at the end of one's prescribed duties.
Prayata, with proper attention.
Prayata, with proper attention.
Smareta, one should remember.
Smareta, one should remember.
Translation, please repeat after me. Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord,
Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord,
the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds,
the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds,
he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord.
He should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord
At the end of his prescribed duties.
at the end of his prescribed duties.
Purport. The Supreme Lord is the seer of all worlds, both material and transcendental. In other words, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate beneficiary and enjoyer of all worlds, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse 29. The spiritual world is the manifestation of his internal potency, and the material world is the manifestation of his external potency. The living entities are also his marginal potency, and by their own choice, they can live in either the transcendental or material worlds. The material world is not a fit place for living entities because they are spiritually one with the Lord, and in the material world, the living entities become conditioned by the laws of the material world. The Lord wants all living entities, who are his parts and parcels, to live with him in the transcendental world. And for enlightening conditioned souls in the material world, all the Vedas and the revealed scriptures are there expressly to recall the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the conditioned soul, living entities, although suffering continually the threefold miseries of conditioned life, are not very serious about going back to Godhead. It's due to their misguided way of living, complicated by sins and virtues. Some of them who are virtuous by deeds begin to re-establish the lost relation with the Lord, but they are unable to understand the personal feature of the Lord. The real purpose of life is to make contact with the Lord and be engaged in his service. That is the natural position of living entities. But those who are impersonalists and are unable to render any loving service to the Lord have been advised to meditate upon his impersonal feature, the Virat Rupa or universal form. Some way or other, one must try to re-establish one's forgotten relation with the Lord if one at all desires to gain real happiness in life and to reclaim his natural unfettered condition. For the less intelligent beginners, meditation on the impersonal feature, the Virat Rupa, or universal form of the Lord, will gradually qualify one to rise to personal contact. One is advised herewith to meditate upon the Virat Rupa specified in the previous chapters in order to understand how the different planets, seas, mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and all that we can conceive are but different parts and limbs of the Lord's Virat form. This sort of thinking is also a type of meditation on the absolute truth. And as soon as such meditation begins, one develops one's godly qualities, and the whole world appears to be a happy and peaceful residence for all the people of the world. Without such meditation on God, either personal or impersonal, all good qualities of the human being become covered with misconceptions regarding his constitutional position. And without such advanced knowledge, the whole world becomes a hell for the human being. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataga Swamin Iti Namine Namo Acharya Padaya Nitaya Kripa Pradhaine Gaurakata Damadaya Nagara Grama Tarine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavade Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Hare Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudanam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangun Langai Taigirim Yatkripa Tamam Vande Sri Gurum Dinatharinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Meshwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. So, very nice words. Somehow or the other, the purpose of living entity here is to develop a sense of loving devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of God, if not directly, at least indirectly. If not Raganuga Bhakti, at least Vaidhi Bhakti. The greatness of God has to be developed in the concept. From greatness of God, the idea of greatness, the sense of service must develop. Oh, God is so great. So I must render some service to God. This sense of service is further development actually. Just like from the sky, the air develops. So similarly, from the idea of greatness of God, the sense of service will develop. Because I am serving somebody great. I go to some office because he provides me. The proprietor gives me some salary. Therefore, he is greater than me. I render service in exchange of something given by him. So God is great. Yeah. So, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. So, one great supreme living. He is supplying all the necessities of all other small living beings. We are all small living being, and Krishna or the Supreme Lord is the greatest living being. So he is also a living being, just like us. The other day, we have seen that, what did I say? Man is made after God, not that God is made after man. So this is very important to understand. If the loving devotion service is not developed, at least meditate on the Virat Rupa. When meditating on the Virat Rupa, this is also Smaranam, which means it's a devotion service. So, but indirectly, so somehow or the other, one should, develop the affinity to serve, render some service. At least we think, okay, in the Virat Rupa, we say, wow, God is very great. I am dependent. So my sense of love has to be developed. We must accept that God is great. He's supplying our necessities. Why not render some service in gratitude here? Is there any harm? Suppose somebody is always supplying you everything. Don't you think in your gratitude to supply, to render some service to him? If you develop that sense of gratitude, that is further development or attachment, a service. Yesterday Guru Maharaj told in the class, attachment to the service is not material attachment. Attachment to the service is Krishna consciousness, and it is very favorable. It will please us Guru and Krishna both. Guru Maharaj quoted his own self as example from the letter given by Srila Prabhupada to him. That when Prabhupada was mentioning in the letter, you have the affinity, attachment to develop the Sridham Mayapur. This is very good. This will please your Guru very much, and this is the way Krishna consciousness, and this is the advanced level of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says. So, and Guru Maharaj said that we must develop attachment to the services we do. If we do that, there will be full cooperation and toleration, and there will not be any fight. This is guaranteed. If there is any fight, the reason is that the doer is not attached to the devotional service. Then only it is, or the leader is not attached to the devotional service. Then only this kind of problem would arise. So, anyway, so now that service has again to be further developed. How it is to be developed? Just like service to your friend. Your friend does not demand service. Just like the master, he demands service. You must do it. But friend, he doesn't demand any service. Your friend renders service voluntarily. Oh, can I supply you this? My dear friend. All right. Yes, why not? So that means voluntary service. More intimate, that is further development. The friendly service. That is a Sakya. From the Dasya to Sakya. Want to raise. In the Dasya, the master orders and the steward does. And then when it is further development in the service means you develop some love. The sense of service will convert into sense of loving service. Isn't it? How you can love when he is a friend. He is Sarvam Suhridam Bhutan. He is already well-wisher and friend of all. He has declared it in the Bhagavad Gita. We forgot him. He did not. So, the friendly service, one sort of friendship is with awe and veneration, of course, just like we do to, say, a rich friend. You cannot talk with him so frankly, although he is your intimate friend. But a friend in the same status, you can talk with him very freely, isn't it? So, similarly, we can develop friendship with God in two stages. The first stage is with awe and veneration. Okay. Oh, God is so great. God is supplying us so many things. So in gratitude, I must serve him. Or he is my well-wisher. He is my friend. But if you further development your friendship, just like Arjuna, Arjuna developed a friendship with Krishna. So when he saw Krishna in his supreme universal form, he said, oh, my dear Krishna, I have talked with you as a friend. I have insulted you in so many ways. Friends and friends, sometimes they talk in insulting tone, but that is not insult. That is pleasure. So similarly, Arjuna also talks to Krishna in so many insulting tone. But when he saw that, oh, here is a supreme personality of Godhead, he was afraid. So you have to further develop the sense of service into sense of loving service. That means, first of all, the further development of service is to accept the Supreme Lord as son, or from the friend you further go on. When I get somebody as my son, the full service is there from the beginning of his life. So that's, subtle form of elements develop into grosser forms, from the sky to air, from air to sky, air to fire, from fire to water, and from water to land. So similarly, the attachment of Krishna also begins to develop from the sense of greatness. God is great, so God is master, so God is friend, and then I render service, then God is friend, and then render service, and God is my son, and then God is my lover. In this way, one step at a time, you have to further develop the service. So, when you develop the service. In the lower stage, of course, there are all other elements. When you love somebody, then there is loving element, and there's paternal element, there is friendship element, there is master and servant element. There is greatness element. Therefore, in the sense of loving God, all other elements are full. Therefore, the full attachment for Krishna is to love him as your lover. So Krishna says, Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is to develop attachment for Krishna under his protection. Madashraya. Just like a friend protects his friend, a master protects his servant, a parent or father protects his child, or a lover protects his lover. Similarly, there is some protectional element, Madhashraya. Krishna is my friend. So we take Guru Ashraya because Guru is the representative of Krishna. So he protects us. So Krishna is my friend. He will protect me. Krishna is my master. He will protect me. Krishna is my son. He will protect me. Krishna is my lover. He will protect me. So in all cases, we see Madhashraya, Krishna says. So he will protect irrespective of in what rasa or what relationship that you have developed or how much love you have developed in rendering service to Krishna. So that is the philosophy of, Krishna consciousness. So the service attitude is very, very important in this world. This even if you have not developed, unless the gross materialist, one is a gross materialist, so he did not develop any sense of loving service, still he is asked to remember and meditate upon the universal form. Because he did not, he is a gross materialist, he just not developed the loving service, loving attitude or servile attitude towards Krishna, then that means that person is working based on sense gratification. He is engaged in gross activities based on the religious principles to gain some benefit or fruitive activities. Still, after completing his duty, he is supposed to at least, think of the Lord in the universal form, because he knows that all these rituals he's performing is for his gratification, that is obtaining is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, who has created all this environment and gave the knowledge and the processes to enjoy the senses, right? So he must at least start meditating on the Virat Rupa when he has not developed any devotional service attitude. So Jiva Goswami, he says in the Bhakti Sandarbha, uncontaminated devotional service is the objective of pure Vaishnavas. And one actually should execute such service in the association of other devotees. Service is teamwork. Consciousness is individual. So that we need to understand. So association of other devotees means there are a variety of different loving sentiment in the same service. By associating with the devotees of Lord Krishna, naturally the sense of Krishna consciousness or sense of loving service will develop. Then he will be inclined to render loving service of the Lord. This is the process of, approaching the Supreme Lord, evam parampara praptam, by gradual appreciation and devotional service. And if one desires unalloyed devotional service, one must associate with the devotees of Sri Krishna, who is already in positioned and performing the unalloyed loving devotional service to Krishna. Because such association, only by such association, a conditioned soul achieve a taste, for the love and the service. So in this way, you can revive the eternal relationship with Krishna, either as a master or as a friend or as paternal lover and so on. So the specific transcendental mellow or rasa, that you need to have individually one-to-one. That is why consciousness is individual, though devotional service is a teamwork. So if one develops love for Krishna, how you will develop? When you are performing Krishna conscious activities in association with the person who already has the love of Krishna. Then you will know, okay, what is Krishna, what is absolute truth is all about. Not simply understanding, trying to with logic and argument. That will not work out. Only by unalloyed devotion, a taste for the services, that would help. That can come in the association of devotees. So let's go to the next verse. So by hook or crook, one has to meditate upon the Supreme Lord, either in the form of Virat Rupa or in the form of devotional service. But without devotional service, we can never understand Krishna, because Krishna says, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, verse 50. Stiram Sukham Chashanamastito Yatir.
Sthiram sukham chashanam astito yati.
Yada Jihashur Imamangalokham.
Yada jihasur imamangalokam.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjayet.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjet.
Prana niyachen manasa jitashu.
Prananyachen manasha jitasu.
Stiram sukham cha saramastito yatir.
Sthiram sukham cha shanamastito yati.
Yada jihasurimamangalokham.
Yada jihasurimamangalokam.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjayet.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjet.
Prana niyachen manasa jitasu.
Prananyachen manasa jitasu.
Stiram sukham cha saramastito yatir.
Sthiram sukham cha shanamastito yati.
Yada jihasurimamangalokham.
Yada jihasurimamangalokam.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjayet.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjet.
Prana niyachen manasa jitasu.
Prananyachen manasa jitashu. Sthiram sukham cha shanamastito yati.
Sthiram sukham cha shanamastito yati.
Yada jihasurimamangalokam.
Yada jihasurimamangalokam.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjet.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjayet.
Pranam niyakshen manasa jitashu.
Pranamyachen manasa jitashu. Sthiram sukham cha shanamastito yati.
Sthiram sukham cha chanamastito ati.
Yada jihasurimamangalokam.
Yada jihasurimamangalokam.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjayet.
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjet.
Pranamyachen manasa jitashu.
Pranam niyakshen manasa jitasu.
Synonyms. Stiram, without being disturbed.
Sthiram, without being disturbed.
Sukham, comfortable.
Sukham, comfortable.
Cha, also.
Cha, also.
Asanam, sitting accommodation.
Ashanam, sitting accommodation.
Astitha, being situated.
Ashita, being situated.
Yatihi, the sage.
Yati, the sage.
Yada, whenever.
Yada, whenever.
Jihashu, desires to give up.
Jihasu desires to give up.
Imam this,
Imam this.
Anga O king,
Anga O king.
Lokam this body,
Lokam this body.
Kale in time,
Kale in time.
and
Cha and
Desha in a proper place,
Deshe in a proper place.
Cha also,
Cha also.
Mana the mind,
Mana the mind.
Na not,
Na not.
Sajayet may not be perplexed,
Sajayet may not be perplexed.
Prana and the senses,
Prana and the senses.
Niyachet must control,
Niyachet must control.
Manasa by the mind,
Manasa by the mind.
Jita Ashu conquering the life air.
Jita Ashu conquering the life air.
Hmm. Translation, please repeat after me. O king, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings,
O king, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings,
he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place,
he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place,
but should comfortably sit without being disturbed,
but should comfortably sit without being disturbed,
and regulating the life air should control the senses by the mind.
and regulating the life air should control the senses by the mind.
Purport.
In the Bhagavad Gita 18.14, 8.14, it is clearly stated that a person who is totally engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and who constantly remembers Him at every step easily obtains the mercy of the Lord by entering into His personal contact. Such devotees do not need to seek an opportune moment to leave the present body, but those who are mixed devotees, alloyed with fruitive action or empirical philosophical speculation, require an opportune moment for quitting this body. For them, the opportune moments are stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8.23 to 26. But these opportune moments are not as important as one's being a successful yogi who is able to quit his body as he likes. Such a yogi must be competent to control his senses by the mind. The mind is easily conquered simply by engaging it at the lotus feet of the Lord. Gradually, by such service, all the senses become automatically engaged in the service of the Lord. That is the way of merging into the Supreme Absolute.
So, very beautiful purport. Okay. Whatever the translation says, Prabhupada in the purport has done the very practical for all of us, our benefit. Yes, he told this. So, Prahlad Maharaj was also offering prayers to the Supreme Lord. He was begging the Supreme Lord's mercy at every step. Narasimhadeva was pacified by Prahlad Maharaja's prayer. He wanted to give him benediction by which Prahlada could procure all kinds of material facilities. But Prahlad Maharaj, he was not misled by material facilities. Rather, he wanted to remain always a servant of the Lord. That is the attitude of the pure devotee. And every step here, the pure devotee will be depending on the Lord and depending on the mercy of the Lord. So that is their nature. And, confidential devotees, they see in every step benedictory direction of the Lord always. What is considered to be an odd or difficult moment in the mundane sense is accepted as a special mercy of the Lord by the devotees. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, actually. By the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished. So, spiritually, you can become healthy. This is very important. And also the pure devotees, whenever there is some danger, also immediately they will think of the protection and shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also actually addressed in Bhagavad Gita, and Anityam Ashukam Lokam Imam Prapya Bhajaswamam in 9th chapter. You can see. Material world, there is danger at every step. Padam padam yatvi padam. Therefore, a devotee has no other resource than to take shelter of the Lord at every step. That's all. You see, whenever you danger, you must take shelter of the Lord. Even if you take this as the philosophy, if you see padam padam yatvi padam, at every step you have danger. So, better that you constantly remember him at every step. Very simple process. Very simple process. Ultimately, you have to remember him. That is very, very important. And that is the main purpose of our all the practice of devotional service. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, verse 16. Manasvabuddhyamalaya niyamaya
मनस्वबुद्ध्या मलया नियमा
kshetrajnayetam ninayetam
क्षेत्रज्ञ निनयेतमात्मनि
Atmanamatmanyavarudyadiro
आत्मानमात्मनि अवरुद्ध्य धीरो
labdopashantirvirameta krityat
लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात्
manasvabuddhyamalaya niyamya
मनस्वबुद्ध्या मलया नियम्य
kshetrajnayetam ninayetam
क्षेत्रज्ञ एतां निनयेतमात्मनि
Atmanamatmanyavarudyadiro
आत्मानमात्मनि अवरुद्ध्य धीरो
labdopashantirvirameta krityat
लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात्
manasvabuddhyamalaya niyamya
मनस्वबुद्ध्या मलया नियम्य
kshetrajnayetam ninayetam
क्षेत्रज्ञ एतां निनयेतमात्मनि
Atmanamatmanyavarudyadiro
आत्मानमात्मनि अवरुद्ध्य धीरो
labdopashantirvirameta krityat.
लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात्
Recite.
मनस्वबुद्ध्या मलया नियम्य
Manasvabuddhyamalaya niyamya
क्षेत्रज्ञ एतं निनयेतमात्मनि
kshetrajnayetam ninayetam
आत्मानमात्मनि अवरुद्ध्य धीरो
Atmanamatmanyavarudyadiro
लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात्
लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात् मनस्वबुद्ध्या मलया नियम्य
मनस्वबुद्ध्या मलया नियम्य
क्षेत्रज्ञेयतां निनयेतमात्मनि
क्षेत्रज्ञ एतं निनयेतमात्मनि
आत्मनामात्मने अवरोध्य धीरो
आत्मानमात्मने अवरुद्ध्य धीरो
लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात्
लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात्
Synonyms. Mana, the mind.
Mana, the mind.
Swabuddhya, by his own intelligence.
Swabuddhya, by his own intelligence.
Amalaya, unalloyed.
Amalaya, unalloyed.
So, Niyamya, by regulating
Niyamya by regulating
Kshetrajne unto the living entity,
Kshetrajna unto the living entity,
Etam, all of them,
Etam all of them,
Ninayet, merged,
Ninayet merge,
Tham, that,
Tam that,
Atmani, the self,
Atmani the self,
Atmanam, the self,
Atmanam the self,
Atmani in the super self,
Atmani in the super self,
Avarudhya being locked up,
Avarudhya being locked up,
Dheerha, the fully satisfied,
Dhira the fully satisfied,
Labdha Upashanti, one who has attained full bliss,
Labdha Upashanti, one who has attained full bliss,
Virameta ceases from
Virameta ceases from
Krityat, all other activities.
Krityat, all other activities.
Translation, please repeat after me. Thereafter, the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity.
Thereafter, the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity,
And then merge the living entity into the super self.
and then merge the living entity into the super self.
And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction.
And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction,
So that he ceases from all other activities.
so that he ceases from all other activities.
Purport.
The functions of the mind are thinking, feeling, and willing. When the mind is materialistic or absorbed in material contact, it acts for material advancement of knowledge, destructively ending in discovery of nuclear weapons. But when the mind acts under spiritual urge, it acts wonderfully for going back home, back to Godhead, for life in complete bliss and eternity. Therefore, the mind has to be manipulated by good and unalloyed intelligence. Perfect intelligence is to render service unto the Lord. One should be intelligent through enough to understand that the living being is, in all circumstances, a servant of the circumstances. Every living being is serving the dictates of desire, anger, lust, illusion, insanity, and enviousness, all materially affected. But even while executing such dictations of different temperaments, he is perpetually unhappy. When one actually feels this and turns his intelligence to inquiring about it from the right sources, he gets information of the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Instead of serving materially for the above mentioned different humors of the body, the living entity's intelligence then becomes freed from the unhappy illusion of materialistic temperament, and thus, by unalloyed intelligence, the mind is brought into the service of the Lord. The Lord and his service are identical, being on the absolute plane. Therefore, the unalloyed intelligence and the mind are merged into the Lord, and thus the living entity does not remain a seed himself but becomes seen by the Lord transcendentally. When the living entity is directly seen by the Lord dictates to him to act according to his desire. And when the living entity follows him perfectly, the living entity ceases to discharge any other duty for his illusory satisfaction. In his pure, unalloyed state, the living being attains the stage of full bliss, labdopasanti, and ceases all material hankerings.
Hari Om Tat Sat. So, our entanglement or liberation, both, our bliss or moroseness, both depends upon the function of the mind. And what are the functions of the mind? Thinking, feeling, and willing. This thinking, feeling, and willing is now polluted because of our material coverings. So we have to revert to that thinking, feeling, and willing through Krishna consciousness. So we should always think of Krishna's activities We should always feel for satisfying Krishna, and we should always will to enact as Krishna desires. That is wanted. Nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagyam uchyate. So, that is Srila Rupa Goswami has given us two formulas. How to become Krishna consciousness, how to remain in Krishna consciousness. And the formula is Anasaktasya Vishayan Yataharham Upayunjata. You should not be attached to the Vishayas. Means, suppose we have got a tendency to construct a big apartment, a skyscraper building. Okay, in every country nowadays, even in India, it has come. In US, it was skyscraper building, we call it. But you should not be attached to the skyscraper building. You can utilize the tendency by constructing a big temple like skyscraper for Krishna. So that is the way we purify the material senses by engaging but to in the service of Krishna. Because in pure consciousness, you don't have anything to worry because there is nothing called material. Material activities means activities without Krishna consciousness. That is material activity. So, if it is connected to Krishna somehow or the other, the activities of the same senses, then it is Krishna consciousness. It is Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, depending upon the level of consciousness, depending upon the thinking, feeling, and willing of the person. Because we know that the Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand that Krishna is the original consciousness. He is the center of all physiological movement, all our thinking, feeling, and willing, because we are all part and parcel of Krishna. Our thinking, feeling, and willing is the part and parcel of the supreme thinking, feeling, and willing. Our present thinking, feeling, and willing are contaminated by the, instead of associating with Krishna and his devotees, we have associated with the cloud of ignorance. So we are thinking, feeling, and willing in a perverted way. So Krishna consciousness movement is an attempt to divert the same thinking, feeling, and willing to the original unalloyed position. So that is the purport Prabhupada is trying to say here, that how we should be. So now thinking, feeling, and willing is the subtle covering of the individual soul. And this is actually accelerated by the individual soul only. Material contact, once it is coming in contact with the material world, then they manifest in a perverted way actually. And when the individual soul voluntarily surrendering to Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then thinking and feeling and willing becomes purified naturally. Then there will not be any difference between material or spiritual. So we need to understand from that perspective, everything is in Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, try to understand the difference between material and spiritual. Material means I have to act. Acting means I have to act with my senses, with my desire, with my thinking, my feeling, my willing. So many things. Because that's original. You cannot stop your thinking, you cannot stop your feeling, you cannot stop your willing, you cannot stop your working, you cannot stop anything because that's your original nature. Jivera Surpa Nitya Krishna Dasa, you have to keep working. You have to keep working. In order to work, you have to will. In order to will, you have to feel. You have to feel, you have to think. So you are living entity. If you have no thinking, feeling, willing, desire for working, then what is the difference between you and a stone? You are not stone. Okay, so the whole process is to rectify, purify the senses. That's all. Purified sense means instead of using the sense for this so-called material happiness, we have to utilize the senses for the happiness of Krishna. Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. That is purified sense. Arjuna, he was not willing to fight. That was to satisfy his own senses. He thought that if I do not kill my brother and nephews or my grandfather and my teacher, the other side, that will make me happy. And if they are killed, where is my happiness? So this is material calculation. So his thinking, feeling, willing was different. Okay. Because he was giving more importance to the material body. That is his brother, what is his grandfather or teacher. He was seeing the material, gross material. Just like what is our calculation? I'm thinking somebody as my friend and another body as my enemy. Why? Because I make distinction on the bodily platform. Dehantara buddhi. I say American. Oh, they are my friends. Russians. Oh, they are my enemies. Why? Why? What is the platform of this distinction? The platform is body. One has got the Russian body by some way or other. Another has got American body by some way or other. I am making distinction. So this kind of distinctions are material platform. Okay. But once your senses are purified, your thinking, feeling, willing and purified, then Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Supake Cha Pandita Samadarshina. So you come to that platform. Pandita means learned one. So who does not make any distinction between a learned Brahmana, dog or cat or cow, or because he's spirit, soul, everybody he's seeing on the spiritual platform. We have to give up our this sense gratification process, and that's the teaching of Lord Chaitanya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he practically demonstrated how to adopt that life of pure sense gratification, pure sense gratification. Okay, that means pure utilization of the senses. So that is where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jivera Swarupa Hoy, Nitya Krishna Das. Jivera Swarupa Hoy means the real nature of the living entity is eternal servant of Lord Krishna. The same thing. What Krishna taught in Bhagavad Gita. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught also the same thing. Bhagavad Gita Dharma teaching. Practically, he shown demonstration. Lord Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vracha. So you give up all your material engagement. Simply just surrender unto me. I shall give you all protection from all reaction of your past sinful activities. You don't need to merge this into that and that into that and this into that. You don't need to do anything at all. You don't need to worry about anything at all. You just engage your all senses in my service, and I know what to merge in what. Very simple. You don't need to look for a time, oh, Uttarayana, Dakshayana, I can die only in December, January, not in July, August. Nothing like that. Na Desa, na Kala, na Patra. In previous words also we have seen. One who is engaged in the pure unalloyed loving devotional service is beyond the time, place, anything conditionable, any duality, any materialistic mode of nature and everything, because his thinking, feeling and willing is part and parcel of supreme thinking, feeling and willing, and as such both are very pure. So his thinking and feeling and willing will be minute part of the whole thinking and feeling and willing of the Supreme, which means that he will think to do what Krishna wants him to think to do. And he will do what Krishna wants him to do. This is very simple process, Buddhi Yoga. You have to dovetail everything into service of Krishna. Then everything will fall into place. That is Lord Chaitanya's teaching. The sum and substance of his teaching is to understand that we are eternal servant of God, and we immediately engage our energy to satisfy Krishna. That's all. Then immediately we are transferred to the spiritual platform. And if we stick to that activities on the spiritual platform, then Krishna assures, after leaving this body, you go back to Krishna, Vrindavana, go back to Godhead, back to home. That is what it is. You don't need to, follow any yogic process or anything. Anyway, Sukadeva Goswami is telling that these are all the different processes available, just like in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was taught by Krishna. So he's telling, because at the time of death, what to do. So according to one's gross materialistic conception, what one can do, in subtle materialist conception, what one can do, and pure platform, what one can do. Everything, Sukadeva Goswami is telling to Maharaja Parishit. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments or realization, please do share with us. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. Thank you very much for the association. We'll resume our class tomorrow morning sharp at 8 o'clock. Till then, Grandra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Patita Pavan Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vaishnav Pranam. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sal Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Lord Premanande. Hari Hari Hari.